Hello there, my RPG lovers, and welcome to another video. Do gamers really care about the attention to detail in games, and how much is this actually affecting the gameplay experience? I'm pretty sure that we all saw a couple of these videos on YouTube or Twitter where someone is comparing all the new games, and the latest example would be Avowed vs Skyrim or even Avowed vs Oblivion. The channel by the name Tarek JK made a couple of videos where he compared Skyrim to Avowed and Oblivion to Avowed, and we can see in those videos how Avowed pretty much doesn't have anything close to the attention to detail like Skyrim or Oblivion even has when it comes to the AI system, I don't know, the fire effects, the physics system, and pretty much everything else when it comes to these small details. It seems like these older RPGs are much more superior compared to Avowed. Now, I personally love Skyrim. I made a ton of videos about this game in the past, and even though it's been like 2 years since I made anything related to this game, my most watched videos on the channel are still about Skyrim mods. But damn bro, I remember people shitting on this game and using arguments like wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle, like all the time back in the day. So it's kind of crazy to me to see today these videos where they compare attention to detail from Skyrim to other RPGs, because people used to like cry about Skyrim a lot back in the day on YouTube, and they even made a lot of these similar videos where they compare Skyrim details to some other RPGs and how Skyrim is shallow, how Skyrim is dumbed down and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that every Elder Scrolls fan remembers these videos that people posted back in the day. While there is some truth to those statements about Skyrim, I think Skyrim had an amazing attention to detail, and these two videos are only scratching the surface of those attention to detail. Some people were making 10 little things you didn't know about Skyrim for 10 years, and I believe they're still making them, so it's crazy, man. I think Skyrim is full of attention to detail, even though it has a lot of other problems, but when it comes to these additional little things which makes the world feel more immersive, I think Skyrim was amazing. On the other side, Starfield lost a lot of those attention to detail, which Skyrim and even Fallout 4 had. The AI system in Starfield was almost completely stripped down if you compare it to Skyrim or even some previous Bethesda RPGs, and it made a stark difference. It made the game way less immersive, and you can make an argument that it fails when it comes to attention to detail compared to previous Bethesda RPGs. It goes back to that old saying that you don't know what you have until you lose it, and that can be applied here. I think this was one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people got disappointed with Starfield, and me included. I would say that this is one of the examples where the attention to detail directly affects the general quality of the game. Bethesda's RPGs tend to be very immersive, so stripping down those features which directly affect the immersion is a brain-dead decision if you ask me. On a completely opposite side of the spectrum, we have many different examples how the attention to detail in games doesn't seem to affect the general quality of the game that much, or how the game is perceived by the players. Far Cry 2 came out in 2008 and it had some insane attention to detail. There are countless of videos out there comparing Far Cry 2 to Far Cry 3 or new Far Cry games. And this game totally blows away every other Far Cry game when it comes to attention to detail. You could shoot through some solid objects, if you start a fire it will spread like crazy, there were proper ballistics for RPGs even had a backfire effect. The AI had some great attention to detail as well, they would try to save their wounded buddies and so on. You can find a lot more examples in these videos, and I highly suggest watching some of them if you didn't already. So if you're watching this as someone who never played a Far Cry game, you would think that Far Cry 2 is the best game in the series by far, right? The sequel and every other Far Cry game after the second one stripped away almost all of these features that we mentioned, so they have to be bad games, right? Well, no, they're not. I mean, sure, some of them are pretty bad, like, what the f was this?
We're gonna take everything that you hold dear, starting with your home. And if we can't take it, we'll break it.
Nowadays, if you try to ask Far Cry fans what's the best game in the series, large majority of them would say it's Far Cry 3. You can find a lot of videos on YouTube where people are ranking all Far Cry games, and you won't get to see Far Cry 2 at the top of the lists that much. Far Cry 2 was not a bad game, but it was also not so great. I mean, sure, you can find some fans that will put the second game as their favorite, but they are definitely not the majority. Far Cry 3 was just amazing. People called it Skyrim with guns, long before everyone started using that comparison to describe every goddamn game with guns that had some RPG elements. Far Cry 3 also had one of the best villains in the gaming history, if you ask me, and the gameplay was still pretty damn good, despite the lack of attention to detail that we could find in the previous game. There is also a great video about the Far Cry 3 protagonist and why he's one of the best protagonists of all time. Sounds silly, but I highly recommend watching it. Far Cry 3 sold around 10 million copies, while the second game sold 2.9 million, according to some older data. It's maybe not fair to compare them like this, because Ubisoft was on the rise when they made Far Cry 3, and that game had a much better marketing campaign in general. But at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. Attention to detail can make a good game great, but it can never make a bad game good. Wow, I sound like a fucking philosopher here. No, but seriously, I believe that you have to create a very solid base for your game, whether that's from story or the gameplay or from the both perspectives in a perfect world. And only if you successfully manage to do that, adding attention to detail in your game will only make the game a lot better. You can find some very immersive games that have a lot of problems on the fundamental level, but they pass the vibe check, so people are ready to forgive a lot of problems if that's the case. But only if your game passes that vibe check or immersion or whatever you wanna call it, and you simply can't do that without at least a solid attention to detail in your game. Games that put immersion as one of the focal points of their design just can't afford to strip away those features like Starfield did. Bethesda's games were never known for some amazing combat mechanics, and it never mattered a lot. It certainly didn't stop them from selling like 60 million copies. Then we have games which are kinda in the middle of the road, games with such great attention to detail that would put even Skyrim to shame if we start comparing these features, but they could never break into mainstream because they had a lot of issues on the fundamental level. If you watch my channel, you know exactly where this conversation is going, and it's definitely not another excuse to talk about my favorite RPG series ever. Gothic 1 came out in 2001 and it had some insane attention to detail. That video where the guy compares Avowed to Skyrim almost made me want to make a video where I do the same with Gothic 1. Almost. And if I did, it would look something like this.
Same old story every time. Maybe.
Hey, you! Beat it!
Come on, put that thing away.
Let's talk about something else instead.
Put that bloody weapon away now!
The right decision.
Let me pass. Let me pass. Let me pass. Let me pass.
Yeah, pretty insane for a 2001 RPG, right? I'll probably get to make the full video about it eventually and upload it on my second channel. You can find a lot more examples like this in the game, it's some crazy attention to detail. It's not just about Skyrim, this game could put a lot of modern RPGs to shame when it comes to attention to detail. The AI system was just insanely deep, and even though the game looks very outdated today, you will easily forget about it when you start playing it because it's still very immersive. The attention to detail is certainly the main reason for that. It creates a very believable game world. But then again, this game had an awkward control scheme which will turn a lot of people away. It was very janky in general, and you would have to be very patient before it clicks with you. But if you manage to persist, it grips you very hard when that happens, and that's why these games have such a strong cult-like following in Europe. There is nothing out there that's even remotely similar to Gothic RPGs, except a couple of recent titles that took some inspiration from it. And of course we have a Gothic remake to look forward to. Speaking of which, I just did a video about the Gothic remake demo, I got to play it a couple of days ago. I have some big concerns for this game, but it seems like it's going in the right direction. Unfortunately, a lot of modern games are all about that eye candy and graphics, which can make them feel soulless. We still have some great new games with amazing attention to detail, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, so it's not all doom and gloom. But it's so funny to me to see some of these clips from, for example, Assassin's Creed Shadows on Twitter, where they are cutting bamboo and they are talking about attention to detail and showing these clips. And we have these old ass games from 20 plus years ago, which have full daily schedules for NPCs, and these NPCs somehow feel way more alive, even though they have like 10 polygons compared to these brand new games which have amazing graphics, but they feel so shallow when it comes to the systems, especially when it comes to AI. To go back to our original discussion, Avowed definitely lacks the attention to detail that people expected to see, at least. I mean, you can't expect people to not compare these games, because people will compare everything, even when it doesn't make a lot of sense. There will always be comparisons like this, and in some cases it won't matter a lot, it will just make a good video, like for Far Cry 2 and 3 we mentioned before, but in some cases people will be really pissed off because they expected a lot more from a particular studio, so I don't blame people for making these comparisons. I had mixed feelings about Avowed, and there are certainly some things that I really like about the game, like the exploration and even the combat system. I think it was pretty fun, although the progression system kinda ruined it in a way for me. You can check out my full review if you want to hear my extended thoughts. That being said, I don't think the reception for Avowed would be any better if it had even more attention to detail than Skyrim. It wouldn't matter that much if you ask me. I think Obsidian kinda shot themselves in the foot, especially with that first trailer, which was way darker and had a lot more different atmosphere compared to the Avowed that we got. And fast forward a couple of years after that, we got the actual trailer for Avowed, and the game looked way different than what people were expecting it to be. So yeah, I think the lack of attention to detail in Avowed certainly made the game worse, but I don't think it would be that much better if we saw all of this stuff that it was compared in these videos. At least not in a huge way, that's my opinion, but I might be wrong, I don't know. Tell me your opinions about this topic in the comments below. Attention to detail in games is not the be-all end-all. It can only improve the game a bit if it's already good, like I said before, and I think Avowed is mediocre in general, so it would definitely improve it a little bit if we got all of those attention to detail that it lacks, but it would not make it an amazing game. One of the biggest issues I had with that game is the storytelling and how boring the characters are, like I said before, the progression system and so on. Check out the review that you'll find in the card. When it comes to Bethesda, I think that Elder Scrolls 6 needs to be freaking epic in order for me to care again about Bethesda's new games, and we got some fresh new leaks that you could probably find already on the internet. About how the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be crazy with all the features. We are supposed to have these naval battles, a huge underwater exploration, and a lot of different cities and all these crazy features. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff in those leaks, you should definitely check it out if you care about that stuff. I personally don't care that much until all of this gets officially confirmed, but it's kind of fun to see. So, is the attention to details actually that important in games? It definitely is if you ask me, but to what extent? I think that depends on case-to-case basis and what kind of a game you want to make. I think I gave you some pretty decent examples in this video about different games, so you be the judge. When it comes to RPGs that I like to play, it's definitely important for me, especially when it comes to those AI systems and how the world feels, even though I can still enjoy some of these newer shallow games, I guess, like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which have, I don't know, terrible AI systems, at least when it comes to NPCs in cities and stuff like that, but I can shut off my brain and explore these open worlds. I can get some fun out of them for sure, but I still prefer those older RPGs like Gothic, and I'm very excited about the Gothic remake actually, and I just released a new video about this game actually, where I got to play the demo for the Gothic remake, and I did the full gameplay analysis in that video, so if you're curious about that, you can check it out. Anyway, I hope to hear your opinion about this topic in the comments below. What is your favorite game with some crazy attention to detail? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. And if you want to go a step further, consider supporting your boy by becoming a YouTube channel member or a Patreon. Huge thanks to all my current supporters, and I'll see ya in the next one.